Hello there. It's been a little while since I made a video, so I wanted to make another one today with a topic that's been on my mind lately. I wanted to talk today about the confirmation bias. And one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about that is because I think it's easy to fall into a certain way of thinking and to not challenge our thoughts and our beliefs. And particularly during this time, I think both sides of the political spectrum really need to do this and really need to practice this, because I don't think that if we don't understand what our own biases are and our own confirmation biases are and where they lie, we run the risk of not coming together and not understanding one another, not supporting one another. And I don't think that when we really think about it, that's where any of us want to head. So what the confirmation bias is I'll start by explaining a little bit about the way that we process information and the way that we make sense of the world around us. The way that we do that, even starting when we're very young, is we see something or we hear something, and that object or concept is encoded in our brains in a certain way. For example, we see a cat and we think, okay, cat, and then our brain makes that a new memory. That's something that's in our mind, and anytime that we see anything that sort of resembles a cat, our brain will automatically assume that that's what it is. We could even see something that was just sort of shaped like a cat from far away, and our brain would, if we didn't look real closely at it, we would be like, oh, there's a cat over there. Another example of these processes and these automatic thought processes that we have is driving a car or riding a bike. We don't consciously think about, I need to pedal the bike. I need to, watch for cars. I need to make sure that I use my turn signal. I need to actually step on the brake. Our brains aren't actually thinking, I need to move my foot right now to the gas pedal or to the brake pedal. These are kind of like autopilot. The first time that we did it, we really did have to think about it. It was very intentional, very deliberate, and it was challenging because it was a new concept. It was something new that our brains were learning. But once we've done it a few times, that pattern is kind of, it's just encoded in a certain way so that we can even think about other things and not even realize or remember our drive or our ride to where we wound up. And so some of that's good. It's good that we don't have to intentionally and deliberately exert that much effort every time we perform those tasks. If we did, we'd be exhausted all the time. It simplifies things for us that we do have ways of understanding and ways of processing things that are more automatic. That's very good. The problem is, and where these things developed was during more primitive years of, early humans and needing to have processes that were more automated, something that just kind of happened in order to keep us safe and keep us well. But the society that we live in today, we have more conveniences. We do have the opportunity to take a little bit more time and think about things. But when we rely on these more primitive processes that we still have, it allows us to kind of close our eyes and close our minds to other things that could be. So an example of this might be we learned about something a certain way in our families where we grew up. We became, accustomed to hearing certain phrases, certain things, certain viewpoints, and they became the norm. And so we went on in our lives carrying that kind of automated process. And every time that we hear something in the world today, in the news today, from someone else that we talk to, we tend to assimilate or equate the parts of what we heard that match what we already knew. Kind of like we would do with a cat on the side of the road. We see something that has some ears sticking up and we see kind of the shape of a cat and we think cat. So you see how that could be the same when you're processing new information. You're talking to someone and you assume that what they said sort of, maybe they used the same words, maybe some of the concepts were similar. And so you equated what they just told you with what you already knew and what you had already learned from in the past. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes what you just heard is actually what's happening. But sometimes you may have just picked out the parts that tell you a certain thing, and they're really not. So I'm sure you can kind of see the danger in this. Some of us were raised with very conservative viewpoints, and some of us were raised with very liberal viewpoints, and some of us, we all come from different places. So we all have different programming. We all have different autopilots. But if we don't realize the autopilot that we have, and we don't recognize that we do this, that we tend to see what fits with what we know, then we're going to run the risk of missing out on a whole bunch of other things and that could possibly be true. And we're also going to miss connection with people whose autopilot doesn't look like ours. And I think that this is super important, because if we want to connect, if we want our communities and our societies and our worlds to support one another, if we truly say, yes, I want to be able to understand other people's viewpoints. I want to be able to love people who are different than me. If I want to be able to empathize, if I want to be able to understand, then we have to be able to know the way our brains tend to function. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with us that they do this, but we do have higher brain structures that now have developed over time and allow us to think critically about our own processing. So when we hear something and we tend to, fall into this confirmation bias, we can then step back and ask questions. We can say, this is what I heard. Is this what you meant? Is this your, was this where you were going with what you were saying? And if you're with someone who supports you, they can say, well, it is to an extent, but I also mean this. And when we do that, we grow. And when we do that, we connect with the other person. And I think that in those times, when that person sees that we took the effort to do that, that builds a connection, which I think is what we're really seeking in the world that we live in today. And, with all the challenges we have, I think it's super important that we take the time to do this. And I just wanted to share with you this little bit of information. I hope that it's helpful. And I know that during this time, I'm definitely trying to be aware of my biases and my how this affects me in my daily life too. It's a challenge, but I think it's important if we want to live and grow and we truly want to love and be loving. So take care, everyone. I hope you have a good day.